Boys and girls, a long time ago, if someone wrote a book, there would only be one of that book. And the only way that you could get a second copy of that book to share with someone else would be if someone wrote every word over again in the second book. This is what that would look like. The original book would be on the stand, and someone called a scribe would go word for word and rewrite it again so that there would be two books. You can only imagine how long it would take for there to be three of that book or four. Forever, this is the way people printed or copied things by hand until someone came up with an idea almost like a stamp. You guys have seen before where there's like a rubber stamp and it has a picture or words on it, and you put it into the ink and then you put it down on the paper and it makes what we would think of as a print. And then if you want a second one, all you do is put that same thing into the ink again and you stamp it down. Well, when they started to think of how they could print books or words, they thought, well, we could do the same thing. We could make a stamp and maybe carve it out of wood. We would make a stamp of all those different letters of our alphabet, and we would be able to stamp them onto the paper, which would make it a lot faster. Eventually, someone even thought, what if we got really good at carving things out and we would carve out like an entire page of a book and be able to stamp that? Now, in art, people thought the same thing. If someone said, well, I want a picture of a bird, but I don't want to have to draw it over and over, what they said was, let's carve the picture of the bird out of a flat piece of wood. We'll put some ink on top of that wood, and the ink will only go on the part that wasn't carved away. So after that was all carved away and the ink was on the part of the bird, they would put paper on top. They would rub it. In this place, they're rubbing it with a wooden spoon. And then when they would peel it off, there would be a picture of the bird. Then all they would have to do to make a second print would be to simply take ink, put it on the carving again, put down another piece of paper, and voila, they would end up with another picture. So this was how the printing worked in art. Now this is a famous print by a Japanese artist named Hokusai that he made hundreds of years ago. And when he wanted to make it, he knew he wanted to make a wave. So he took a piece of wood, he drew on there the wave, and he started to carve it, carefully carving it away. Now, this is not Hokusai himself. This is someone doing the same thing so that we could see the process. After it was carved out, he put ink onto there and he spread it onto the piece of wood. Then he put a piece of paper on top, and instead of a wooden spoon like they pushed down with the bird, here he's pushing down with this flat apparatus there. And when he lifted it up, he would have the print. Now, Hokusai was really wanting to make this print because it was about Japan. In the background here, we can see a picture of Mount Fuji. This is a volcano that's in Japan that actually is what we call dormant, which means that it's not going to be erupting. However, he shows the wave and he shows that there are these people being tossed about in the water. And then when he shows the wave itself, he doesn't do it like a real wave where there's like sea foam that looks almost like sweet little bubbles. Instead, we see that the foam on this wave looks almost a little dangerous, like fingers that are coming out to kind of scratch at them. The message that he was trying to say was that nature is very, very powerful. A lot of times we see a wave as being this sweet thing, but he was saying, Japan, you need to be careful. It could be just like a wave that's coming down to attack Mount Fuji with these evil fingers, that we need to be making sure that we're ready for typhoons and ready for hurricanes, just like us here in Miami, that we need to not be complacent. We need to be ready if there are storms. Now, today you are going to be making a wave print of your own. You are not going to have to carve your printing plate out of wood. Thank goodness. I have these pieces of foam, and your pen, when you draw on it, is basically going to be carving out a groove on that foam where eventually when you print it, you, just like Hokusai and just like the bookmakers of olden time, you'll be able to print from that printing plate over and over and over. You'll be able to color it in and use whatever colors you like using a washable marker. And then we are going to be taking a piece of paper and getting a little bit of moisture on there. And we'll put the paper down on top of your printing plate. This is how we'll wet it with a sponge. We'll put the wet side down onto your printing plate that you put ink on. And then we're going to rub it there for you for today so your print turns out nice. And you will be pulling a print. And then after that, you get to decide again what your next color scheme is going to be like. So when you sit down today, I have a whole bunch of examples for you of different types of waves. You can have big waves, they can be calm, it can include a sun or a moon, it can have hills in the background. But as you work, you're going to keep rubbing your finger over the foam there to see if you can feel a groove. Most often you'll see what I'm doing here, that I'm going over the groove a second time, because in order for it to print properly, we need to be able to have a groove in that styrofoam that's kind of deep, and that it will resist the ink when you go to draw it. So you're going to be starting off with your design, and then you can start somewhere else. You're going to really feel what it's like to draw on foam. At first, it can feel a little like your pen is getting stuck in there, but as you keep working, you'll get used to it. Sometimes it's even that you do like medium hardness when you first draw, and then you go over it again. If you find that you're making holes in the foam, you're probably going too hard, and you just have to go back and go over it a second time. If you are drawing so lightly that you don't feel anything at all, then you're an example of person who should maybe be pressing down a little harder. We'll be walking around and making sure that your grooves are good and that you're going to be okay before you go to start to print. So I'm completing this and putting some final details on there. I just added it in the moon, and now I'm putting a little in the sky. You could make it look like a starry night sky, or you could have rays. Whatever brings you joy, that's what you're going to do. And you can really see that mine is looking very groovy. When we say it's time for you to color, you'll be picking up the markers, and I want you to see that on the tip of a marker, if you hold it straight up and down, you get a really thin line. But if you angle it a little bit, you'll be able to see that you can get a wider amount of ink when you pass it across the foam. So if you see here, if you can start to figure out how to hold your marker at an angle, you can see that I can lay down a nice thick layer of ink. And that is always going to be best for when you go to print, because you'll have a lot of nice amount of color in there that didn't take you forever and ever to color in because of the way you were holding the marker. Now, I just put down a little bit of orange, but because I'm thinking that I'd like a sort of a sunset sky in the background, can you see that I'm just going straight now into red? And I'm always going to be making sure to cap my marker. A lot of times we get excited and we forget to cap them, and then that's just so sad for our markers being able to last from day to day. Now, this was my friend Oliver. He pulled 2 prints, and he did yellow and purple, but then he did black and orange. So you can see that every time we pull a print, you can really color it in a second time differently. This guy, he was a little bit bummed that he kept coloring it in the same with the blue and the yellow, the blue and the yellow, and at the end he added a little orange. But if you can try to remind yourself that the way that you're doing it first, like in this case, having blue waves with some purple and an orange sky, that maybe the next time you pull a print, you might have a sunset sky with more greenish waves, or maybe you would have black waves, kind of like it's an evening night out at the beach and with a purple sky or something. It's fun to have it be different every time. Regardless, when you're finished, Miss Eden or I are going to come by. We will get some water on a piece of paper. We're going to put the moist side down onto the print, and we will do this part for you so that it doesn't move around a lot, and then you will pull your print. As soon as you pull it, you're going to be figuring out your plan for the second print, but we want you to first put your print down on your placemat. That placemat is going to be on the floor. So here I just pulled that print and I'm putting it down on my placemat that has my name on it. As you continue throughout the day and make more prints, you'll put them all on there, and then at the end of our time together, you'll bring everything, every print that you pulled up onto the table with your placemat. You'll lay everything out so we can see what you did, and you will put your printing plate there. So you are about to sit down and to start to draw your wave. Have fun.